Hey everyone, Sam here, otherwise known as FPL Pricey. In today's video, I'll be running through my wildcard team ahead of Game Week 8. I'll also be taking a deeper look at captaincy and some of my final decisions before locking in ahead of the deadline. Welcome back everyone to another video on my channel. Today we'll be running through my wildcard ahead of Game Week 8. A lot of thinking has been going into this over the international break, almost too much to a point of overthinking. And as much as I like wildcarding in an international break because you have the time to think it all through, it is a little bit painful when everything just feels like it's moving very slowly and it gives you a lot of time to overthink quite minor decisions. So I've come to a conclusion on most of the pieces of my wildcard. I've got one or two spots that I'm deliberating between, which we'll go into in today's video. Before we look though, I'd really appreciate if you could leave a like and hit subscribe to the channel, only if you enjoy the content, of course. And if you do so, that would be greatly appreciated, especially as I'm chasing down 5,000 subscribers before the turn of the year. Let's not waste any more time. Let's have a look at my wildcard team in full rather than in chunks as I usually do, because let's face it, I've posted a couple of videos on this already this week and not too much has changed. So I don't want to waste anyone's time. Starting my back line, I've got Newcastle covered off in the form of Nick Pope. Now, there are slight worries that he is a keeper that tends to get injured a little bit more than other keepers, but I think that's just something, again, I just don't want to overthink. His expected points are really good. He's got a great run of fixtures all the way through to about the time I'll probably be using my second wildcard in about game week 24, when double game weeks seem to sort of come in. And Newcastle are also a very tight defence as well. So I don't want to overthink it. He's reasonably priced, quite a bit cheaper than Raya now as well. And because of that, I think I prefer this combination without Raya in goal, just because I think Pope's also got a little bit more upside in terms of the saves and the BPS as well. He ranks very highly on and ahead of a lot of the defenders in his Newcastle side. So in a 1-0 or a 0-0, he's more likely to get the bonus points than someone like Raya is. Dubravka, easy selection. Good on a bench boost over the next 2 game weeks as well. This week, I could play him ahead of Pope away at Brighton because he's got Leeds at home, but I certainly want to use him in game week 9 if I bench boost. Into my back line, I've kept double Arsenal defence with Timber alongside Gabriel. Timber's the one that is a little bit more of a flair pick, but I do have faith and I have confidence that he'll start the majority of games this season. And in my planning, I only really need this second Arsenal spot until about game week 12-13, at which point I will probably move it across to either Van Dijk or downgrade the position so I can upgrade a midfielder to Salah. It doesn't get me all the way in terms of the budget, but it does help me out. So I think for the next 4 game weeks, Timber seems secure enough that I'll take a chance on his upside as well and just hope that he starts the next block of 4. Senesi, Anderson and Rodon, very popular on all wildcards that you'll see this week. Rodon and Anderson rotate pretty well, especially in the next 2 when Anderson has difficult fixtures. Rodon's got 2 nice ones against Burnley. And then again, very easy to bench boost in game week 9, which is currently on the agenda with this side. Senesi, I don't need to start every single game week for the next couple, but then the long-term fixtures are very good as well. So that makes sense to me, and I don't want to overthink a player like Senesi or Anderson, who are raking in DEFCON points. Their averages for the DEFCON per 90 are very high as well, so it doesn't seem to be going anywhere. And they're both in pretty reasonable defences, historically at least, as well. Same goes for Rodon, by the way. Leeds have been very impressive defensively, barring 2 games. In 5 of their 7, they've kept under 1 XGC per 90. That's very, very good for a 4 million defender. Now 4.1, but I did get him before the price rise. Into my midfield, those 4 positions are pretty much locked in, barring any sort of injury news. Saka, Semenyo, Sarr, and Enzo. Enzo's come in ever since we heard the Palmer injury rumours, I suppose. It's not quite news, it's not official, but it looks like he's going to be out for a little while yet. Therefore, Enzo Fernandez is going to be more advanced up the pitch. His minutes are very good, and he might have penalties as well. Chelsea's fixtures are also absolutely fantastic, hence why I've gone double Chelsea attack with João Pedro. And I think if it wasn't for the fixtures, I'd be more tempted to downgrade Pedro, but he's had a rest during the international break, and he'll be banned in the midweek between game week 8 and 9 in the Champions League. So I think his minutes are very secure. And at least one of those 2 players, Enzo or Pedro, will take the next penalty if Palmer's not on the pitch. So very happy with that combination. And they are both maybe potential piggy banks later on, like with Timber, where I could downgrade those positions around about the time that Salah's fixtures turn really good, or Isak's as well. There are options there in Liverpool's ranks, no question, and it's not a guarantee we'll want Salah in game week 12, 13. But if I did, then I could look at downgrading João Pedro or Enzo to free up some funds there as well. Back to my midfield, Sarr, Semenyo and Saka are all pretty much nailed in. Semenyo's fixtures are average over the next few, but in both cases with Semenyo and Sarr, I think they're very good on the break. They're very good in high transition games. And if you look at each individual fixture over the next few for both Bournemouth and Crystal Palace, I can see them being quite end-to-end high transition games where they will pounce quickly as a team. And both Sarr and Semenyo are very, very hot on that. Then the fixtures longer term, after that iffy block of fixtures for both of them, they look much more positive. So more than happy to have both of them. Saka as well. I'm a little bit worried about fitness just because he has broken down a few times over the last season or two. But if that happens, I've got an easy route down to Bruno Fernandes between game week 9 and game week 12. Or if it happens closer to game week 12 or 13, then I hop across to Salah a week sooner than I would have originally planned, perhaps. Or maybe go to Cole Palmer because I've still got that Chelsea spot as well, and he might be back around that time as well. Regardless, a bit like with Timber, I don't plan on owning Saka beyond game week 12 or 13 because that is the position that I've got earmarked to either downgrade so I can upgrade a striker to Isak, or to upgrade him to Salah himself and downgrade elsewhere. So for the time being, really like him. I think I'm going to feel stupid saying this, but I am going to make a note of it. I have a hunch that Gyökeres is going to be the one that takes the next penalty. And the only reason I think that is because Arsenal are very team-centric. And if Gyökeres hasn't scored before the next penalty is awarded, I wouldn't be surprised if Saka just gave him one to get him back up and running. That being said, Saka's first in line, and it is his decision to make. So I say long term, over 4 or 5 game weeks, I think I will still maybe get a penalty out of him, and his open play threat is very good too. So I definitely want him. In my forward line, Erling Haaland, we don't really need to talk about, do we? He's going to be my captain most weeks. I think there were brief flirtations with trying to fit Salah into this draft as well, because I actually do quite like the fixtures over the next few, and the expected points are very good. But in every draft, I couldn't make one that worked with both Salah and Haaland, especially considering I do need to bench boost at some point. And the only way that I could make it work is if I basically had a 4.3 million striker in that third spot, which is currently undecided, and bench boosted after Salah goes to AFCON, where I've got 5 free transfers and I can spread the Salah funds to make a decent bench boost around about game week 17, which I'm not entirely ruling out. But I would just like to get the bench boost out of the way, and then I can just downgrade the spot anyway in a couple of game weeks' time. And then I've got the freedom to make the transfers I want of most impact to my 11. So I think for now, I'm going without Salah. Partly because of ownership as well, because it's going to punish me less if he does really well. And a lot of people aren't going to be able to get back across to him quickly. So there's a bit of game state for FPL there on my mind. The same goes for Bruno Fernandes as well. Both players I quite like to own, but they're at least not going to punish me as much as they could have previously right now. So I'm reluctantly going without either, partly for team structure purposes and partly because I'm not fully confident in them anymore, and owning them would be a bit of a bet against the crowd, a bet that I'm not confident enough on. So I'm going without them for now. I do plan on getting back to both of them at some point around about game week 12 and onwards, but for now, I'm just going to leave them to one side. Let's move over to the big decision, the 2 spots left in my side. I've got 12.1 million to spend in those 2 spots, a 5th midfielder and a 3rd striker. There are 3 particular combinations I like, especially if I don't downgrade that 3rd striker all the way to a 4.3. So these are the 3 different combinations for a 5th midfielder and a 3rd striker that I'm currently debating between. There might be hybrid versions of this where in version number 3, I'd be going with Minter instead of Ndai. That is obviously possible and within budget. But let's run through one by one. Remember, though, I do have a bench boost to use. And with all of these combinations, the idea would be to either bench boost in game week 9 or as a backup in game week 11. After that, I hope to be able to downgrade the 8th attacker spots at some point before the time that I really need to get to Salah, because I will need to release funds as much as possible to be able to incorporate both Salah and Haaland. But there is also a chance I just don't need Salah as well. And I do want to take that into account, that I'm not just building my team right now knowing that I'm getting to Salah, because I might not want him. And I don't want to ruin my performance over the next few game weeks just on the chance that I am going to want to get back to him. Anyway, that to one side. The combination at the top is the one that I'm currently floating towards, I suppose. I'm not quite locked in there, but I do like both Voltemada and Longstaff as a bit of a differential. Now, I think this decision, and actually my entire decision, will likely come down to whether or not I'm fully confident in Voltemada's minutes over the next few game weeks. His minutes have been getting progressively better, but I still have a few worries that he's not quite acclimatized to the Premier League and the physicality and the speed of it. Obviously, he's doing very well in the minutes he's given, but Eddie Howe is bringing him off early every now and then to save him from that physicality from him. I think in the first match he got cramps. He's been brought off a few times early since then. And obviously Newcastle have other competitions to deal with as well, namely the Champions League. And he is their best striker. So are they going to bring him off early? I don't think he misses out on any of the next four, but if he's getting 60 to 70 minutes in 2 or 3 of these, then that lessens his appeal. And also, I don't back him to have penalties over Gordon, and Gordon will still get minutes in the next few game weeks. In fact, he'll likely start at least 3, maybe even all 4 of the next 4 games. So one of the 3 goals, that Voltemada scored so far was a penalty when Gordon was off the pitch. I don't think we'll see that all that often. So then I'm really relying on him having good open play goal threat at 7.2 million, which is quite a lot to be spending on a third striker who doesn't have penalties and whose minutes might not be secure. Hence why my whole decision will probably come down to, do I back him to get 80 plus in the majority of these next few game weeks? If I do, I think this combination works for me. Longstaff, a quick word on. I actually think I prefer him over a lot of the 5 million options. So Dewsbury Hall, Xhaka maybe slightly ahead of Longstaff, but not by much. Certainly ahead of Stack right now. Leeds fans are much more bullish on Longstaff than on Stack. And at 0.1 less, it makes all of this affordable. I've got nothing in the bank with this combination. He is on corners now. He's taken them off of Stack. He's got decent open play goal threat, as we saw at Newcastle. He's a bit of a box crasher. He makes those late runs. And he's also been creating a lot of chances for Leeds as well. So he's a player that I just have quite a lot of faith in terms of his ability as a footballer. And I just can't see him coming out of that Leeds side, especially on a bench boost over the next 2 game weeks. Game week 9 against West Ham at home, absolutely fantastic for a bench boost. And then Nottingham Forest in game week 11 too. If as a backup, I need to go a bit later, let's say I get an injury in my starting 11 in game week 9, he's got a good fixture in game week 11 too. So it's not bad as a backup option. So a combination of Voltemada and Longstaff, if I'm confident on Voltemada's minutes, it feels pretty good to me. After that, options B and C. So Thiago and Minter is kind of just giving myself a really stacked 8-man attack where I'm spreading the money evenly between my 5th midfielder and my 3rd striker. I like both of them, but I don't love Thiago's fixtures over the next few. And if I'm looking at bench boosting in game week 9, Liverpool at home is not ideal. I do prefer him to Calvert-Lewin, who I'll come on to, but for 0.6 million more, when his minutes aren't that secure, and it will mean that I'm leaving more money on my bench each week, either in the form of Thiago or in Minte, that's 1.5, 1.6 on my bench every single week. And when I'm doing it with a bench boost in mind for game week 9 or game week 11, Thiago's got pretty poor fixtures in both of them. Now, can he score in either? Absolutely, but those aren't what you would want on a bench boost. So I do have hesitations and a reluctance to make this combination. Although I do really like Yankuba Minte, even with draft option number 3 here, the 3rd combination, I could have Minte ahead of Ndai, and that's a pretty even battle for me. But the penalty taker Ndai, and on 90 minutes, he's been playing very well this season as well. I think I might just prefer Ndai if I can afford it. So yeah, Minter I really like. Good fixtures over the next run. Man United away when I want to bench boost, fine with that. Crystal Palace away as a backup, it's okay, don't mind it. And he's very playable in a lot of fixtures, but it will always give me a benching headache because I can't start 8 attackers every week, only on my bench boost. So I feel like this is the least likely option for me to go with Thiago and Minte, because it just gives me a problem every single week until I downgrade the position. And it's not even that ideal, that optimal on bench boost in game week 9 or in game week 11 as a backup. So maybe putting that to one side, my final option is the one that people will probably hate. And I get it, because I've talked down Calvert-Lewin quite a lot. I don't like him. I don't have a good history with him. But if I'm only playing him in 2 fixtures, maybe even only 1 fixture, and that's West Ham at home on the bench boost, if I've got a penalty-taking striker who's getting 90 minutes in not a great attack, but an attack that can score a couple of goals, he's getting a few chances, underlying data's not bad. He massively underperforms on that underlying data, but if I can spike a return in 1 game week and then just bin the position and take him down to an OB for 4.3 million, that might be quite an effective way of using the bench boost. And then it's 1 transfer, I release the funds, and then it makes it easier to get Salah potentially later on. So I don't like Calvert-Lewin, and I think I'll be reluctant to go with this combination, even if I do prefer it, just partly because of like all of the hate I'll probably get for going with Calvert-Lewin. And that's just such a bad way of playing the game. I don't want to do it. I don't want to not do it because people hate Calvert-Lewin, including myself. But this version does give me 2 penalty takers. It does give me pretty nailed minutes, and it gives me 2 good fixtures on a bench boost. Spurs at home is maybe not ideal, but again, he's on penalties, he gets good minutes. I would not be surprised if Ndai scores in that game. And Calvert-Lewin has a plum home fixture against West Ham. Quick word finally on Calvert-Lewin, because I think myself included, but a lot of people are just sort of assuming he'll take penalties. And I do still have him as the penalty taker, but he did blaze one over. I think he had a bit of a howler in the cup in a penalty shootout. And some Leeds fans are saying that they wouldn't be stunned if someone else stood up and took the penalty. I think they still generally have him down as the penalty taker, but they wouldn't be stunned if someone else did. So if I'm not fully confident he takes penalties, then really, why am I even thinking about buying a player that I know underperforms, that after West Ham I won't want anyway? So that might push me towards draft number 1 regardless. So all of that being said, I think 1 and 3 are the 2 that I'm most tempted by. I'm currently on number 1 because I do like Longstaff. I like Voltemada, especially if the minutes are secure, but I do have some thinking to do as to whether or not I'm fully confident on Voltemada's minutes over the next batch of fixtures. And if I'm not, going with combination 3 is something that I can get on board with, especially knowing that I'll probably be getting rid of Calvert-Lewin very, very, very soon for a 4.3 million dead spot as soon as I've got the bench boost out of the way. So I'm delighted to say that today's video is sponsored by Club, which is another free-to-play fantasy football game that I've been playing for a couple of seasons now, hence why my budget is looking pretty healthy. I'm up to 36.5 million, meaning I can afford some of the more expensive players. I've also made the executive decision to bring in a couple of loan players, well, actually 3, Haaland, Salah and Caicedo for this game week. So hopefully I can do pretty well in my head-to-head. I can move up the leagues. I think I'm Silver League number 2 at the moment. I want to get up to Gold and Diamond as quickly as possible as well. But we're here today to have a look at what Agent Manny is giving me. So I'll meet him now. Fingers crossed, because this always goes terribly when I'm recording it, and I don't want to pay for another one. We're up to Core. We're up to Rare. That's pretty good. Elite. This is very good. Star. That's incredible. Goalkeeper. That is about as bad as it could have been for a star player, that is. Is it going to be Donnarumma? That's a bit... that's probably like one of the worst star players you could have. But I'm not complaining, because that is a fantastic player to own. He is 6 million, though. I'll decide later. And when you look at my squad right now, I've got Pope and I've also got Pickford. Is it worth 6 million? It would take me over budget as well. I'm not sure about it. But if you want to take me on in Club, it's free to do so. I've got my own league. I've left all of the notes for how to join Club in the description below, and on screen is my league code if you wanted to go give it a go. Like I said, free to do so, and it's just a fun little thing to do alongside FPL that I'm really enjoying. So go check it out, join my league if you can, and see if you can beat me. So for those of you who are new to the channel, I do a weekly segment with my captaincy rankings ahead of every single deadline, and I rank myself throughout the season to see how I'm doing and how my captaincy picks are getting on. So far, off to a good start, 6 out of 7, and in that time, I've picked up 8 attacking returns from the 7 game weeks. This is all players, not just the ones in my team. My captaincy decision obviously won't be the very best player every single week. But this week, I think it's a pretty close call. I think Haaland and Salah are actually almost dead heats in terms of the expected points, as you can see on screen. But also, Salah's track record against Man United is so good that it would tempt me if I had Salah to go there. But the problem is, Haaland is in just such good form right now, and his ownership is also so high that going against him is taking a big gamble, a big bet against the crowd. And Haaland's also a very good option at home to Everton anyway. I think the fixture's a little bit more tough, ironically, considering the colour of the fixture ticker for both of those individual fixtures. But I think everything's going through Haaland at the moment at City, whereas with Liverpool, they're still not quite clicking into gear just yet. That could come at any moment, of course. And Man United might easily be the time when they do finally get back to their best. But it seems like a bigger and bigger gamble the less owned that Salah is. So I still just slightly favour Haaland this week. He will be my captaincy candidate ahead of Game Week 8. And fingers crossed I can keep up my good record with the rankings. So to finish off today, I just wanted to quickly run through those 3 combinations and how it plays out over this week and Game Week 9 for the bench boost. Maybe a quick word on Game Week 11 as well. So like I mentioned, the combination that I'm currently on includes Voltemada with Longstaff on the bench most weeks. Game Week 8, it looks pretty strong with Voltemada in there. And then around that, it does say I've got minus budget remaining, but I've made the early moves. Trust me, it's affordable. It's my live draft right now. So Voltemada would be in away at Brighton, Longstaff on the bench, Senesi also probably benched, Rodon starting, and then I've got a decision to make about whether I start Pope or Dubravka with whichever draft I go with. The models, and this is Solio, by the way, do go check it out. The description is below. But the models are suggesting that Dubravka is the better bet out of Pope or Dubravka. But I've got a sneaky feeling that Pope's upside is very high against Brighton in the sense that he'll probably get a few saves. And if Newcastle are able to keep a clean sheet, he's probably likely to get some bonus as well. So I think there's the potential for a 10-point spike with Pope there. Whereas with Dubravka, it's better odds of a clean sheet, but I'm not fully confident. Anyway, that's not why we're here. Let's have a look at the following game week. My bench boost would look like this, with 4 pretty decent options on my bench. Dubravka away at Wolves. That's fine. Happy with that. Longstaff at home to West Ham. Anderson away at Newcastle. Not a great fixture, but Newcastle aren't scoring tons of goals, and he's very reliable on DEFCON, so he should get a 3 or a 4-pointer, as the models are suggesting here. And then Ismail Assar is probably my weakest of the bunch away at Arsenal. And that goes directly up against my double Arsenal defence. But you can't win every combination. You can't avoid all of those. And Sarr, if Crystal Palace do score against Arsenal, hence therefore breaking my Arsenal clean sheets, then Sarr's got a pretty good likelihood of being the guy who does it. So it balances out pretty nicely. And his underlying data is fantastic. So I'm happy enough to bench boost like that. Backup would be Game Week 11, where Leeds are away at Nottingham Forest. So Longstaff and Rodon on my bench away at Nottingham Forest. And then Newcastle assets are away at Brentford. So Pope and Voltemada on the bench here. Dubravka, again, you could probably reverse that and put Dubravka on the bench away at West Ham. And then it's pretty strong across the board. This is actually arguably an even better week, but I'd like to get it out of the way as soon as possible so I can start downgrading positions where possible. So that's option 1. Option 2 is Calvert-Lewin with Ndai. So it doesn't love Game Week 8 quite as much as the first draft, although there's not much in it. But then Game Week 9, when I'm looking at bench boosting, again, that's quite a strong bench boost in Game Week 9, where Calvert-Lewin actually gets promoted to the starting 11. And then I've got Rodon on my bench, West Ham at home for him, and the other 3 are the same as the previous one. So again, it's a good looking bench boost. It does slightly better in terms of the models, a 16.7 plus benefit from the mean versus I think it was 14.6 in option 1. So it's a pretty chunky benefit. And then as a backup, I've got Game Week 11, like I said, where Calvert-Lewin, Senesi and Rodon would probably be on my bench alongside probably Dubravka. And again, that looks pretty good as a bench boost if I wanted to use that. The final option would be Thiago and Minter. The problem with that would be outside of the bench boost itself, I will always have that 6 million asset on my bench. So bench boost looks pretty good with Man United away for Minter. Thiago's in my starting 11, Liverpool at home. But then after that, every single week, I'm just carrying a lot of money on my bench. In fact, even in Game Week 10, it even recommends having Semenyo on my bench, which I do not love. Minter on my bench that week. I'm started to make transfers by Game Week 12. We can ignore that. But it's just a lot of money to have on my bench. So I think option number 1, remember which one that is, the one with Voltemada, sits the best with me right now, but also don't rule out the Calvert-Lewin draft, as unfortunate as that is, just so that I can then downgrade that position and go with a 4.3 immediately after, making it easier for me to get back to Salah later on down the line if I wanted to do so. Anyway, as we reach the end of today's video, I hope you've enjoyed it. Hopefully everything I've said made sense, but if anything didn't make complete sense, do drop a comment below and I'll be happy to answer you. And if you've got any of your own questions, again, just chuck a comment below and I'll try and get back to you before the Game Week 8 deadline. If you did enjoy it, please do consider leaving a like and hitting subscribe. And remember, I've got a live stream on Friday night where I'll be running through all of your deadline decisions. Come join me there. We'll have a laugh and we'll get locked in ahead of Game Week 8 together.